You're listening to Passages, a podcast about great quotes, life, and the wisdom of the Bible. And now your hosts, Drew Kaiser, Jason Pulliam, and Tim Layton.
We shall meet, but we shall miss him. There will be one vacant chair. We shall linger to caress him when we breathe our evening prayer.
It's a sad night.
We shall meet, but we shall miss him. There will be one vacant chair.
We're not going to sing
Jason, 'cause he's at the beach.
when he really should be here. Yes. So this is the first time it's just been me and you, Tim.
That's right.
What are we going to do without Jason?
The room is terribly imbalanced this evening.
Right?
But we're going to see if we can get Jason for a moment.
The last time you were out, we bothered
right.
you on vacation.
And we believe that through the means of modern technology that we might be able to get Jason on the phone. It's now 9:30. Hopefully he hasn't gone to sleep yet. And
he's been sleeping till 10 a.m. every morning.
Yeah.
He's still got fuel in the tank.
So here we go. Let's see.
Oh, it's ringing. Might actually get her. You know he's been expecting this.
Come on, Jason. He might be playing putt-putt or riding a go-kart somewhere.
Might be eating some fish.
Very sad.
Well,
Jason, we tried, buddy.
yeah. Maybe, I wonder if he calls in, if it'll pick him up.
That'd be interesting.
We'll see.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe talk to Jason later. I know our passengers would appreciate that.
If we do, we'll go. Breaking news, special report.
Yeah, I don't have a soundbite for that. So I do have some interesting astronomy to talk about.
All right.
I always have to pause and make sure I don't say astrology.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different thing. Astronomy. Have you heard of the James Webb telescope?
Do
you know the James Webb telescope?
I think I have.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It sees, all I know about it is they can see a lot more with it than previous telescopes.
Like the Hubble, right?
Right. This makes Hubble look like trash. I'm not even sure I'm right about that.
Maybe about the James Webb somewhere along the way during the podcast?
We talk about so much. It's very possible.
We've done so many episodes now. I'm beginning to question myself a lot.
Yeah.
But
I'm not even sure the quotes. I'm like, man, this sounds familiar.
No.
We may have just done this
That's
one.
right. So we will tell you that if you can point out something that we've done more than once, you'll receive one of the first Passages T-shirts when they come off the press.
And
Now,
let's throw in a batch of couch mix.
And a batch of couch mix. Now, both of them have to go into production, neither of which we have any idea what we're going to do. But
Pending production.
But you'll have that going for you, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, this was very interesting. Eyeball planets spied by James Webb telescope might be habitable. There's this fascination now. Now that we've decided the world is coming to an end, we're making plans to colonize other planets.
Going to Mars.
Talked about Mars. I think Elon Musk said he was going to have 1 million people on Mars in 20 years.
Right.
I saw that headline and thought, yeah, okay.
Only a minor inconvenience that it's negative 180 degrees, but
yeah. We'll work around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get those
extra
ACs
sweater.
after they're done with them at the Olympics. We'll just move those on to Mars. But here's another problem. It's 50 light years from Earth. This habitable planet, supposedly habitable, which that means the time it would take It would take us as long as it takes light to travel in 50 years. If we were traveling let me try that again. If we were traveling the speed of light, it would take us 50 years to get there.
That's quite a distance.
Tim, I don't think we've developed the technology yet to make a human body go the speed of light.
No, I don't believe we have.
So we got to conquer that one first.
Right. Or it's going to take us a little longer than 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, 5,000 years or
more than that.
Million years.
That's when we get into the scenarios of putting the astronauts into comas and seeding another planet billions of years from now, which I'm not signing up for that mission.
No.
But it's 50 light years from Earth. The beady-eyed exoplanet LHS 1140b, catchy name, could be a perfect candidate for discovering liquid water outside the solar system, new research suggests. The James Webb Space Telescope has found that a distant world discovered several years ago could be an eyeball planet with an iris-like ocean surrounded by a sea of solid ice. If you saw a picture of this thing, it looks just like an eyeball with a blue eye. And apparently the blue eye could be a sea of solid ice or maybe even water. They think it's potentially habitable because of the water. The exoplanet, which is a term I'm not familiar with.
Exoplanet.
Outer planet, perhaps?
Planet, like an exoskeleton, skeleton on the outside.
I probably should have looked that up, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But LHS 1140b was first discovered in 2017. Initially, it was thought to be a mini Neptune, swirling with a dense mixture of water. Neptune, there's no way we could ever land on that. It's just a ball of gas. Yeah. But new findings accepted for publication in the Astrophysical Journal letters. Do you get the Astrophysical Journal letters?
I think my subscription ran
exciting.
out.
Yeah, you got to renew that.
Yeah.
It's a page turner.
Yeah.
And available on another place, suggests the planet is icier and wetter than scientists thought. That means it could support life. Of all currently known temperate exoplanets, LHS 1140b could well be our best bet to one day indirectly confirm liquid water on the surface of an alien world besides our solar system, says this astrophysicist. This would be a major milestone in the search for potentially habitable exoplanets. We got to figure out what an exoplanet is because they love that term.
Yeah.
Located 50 light years from Earth, LHS 1140b, also they need to rename this thing, is roughly 1.73 times wider than our planet.
Get a real name.
So I found that interesting. It's bigger than Earth, 1.7 times wider. That's almost double. No, 1.7 times. That's bigger. I'm not going to try to do math. And 5.6 times its mass. It is tidally, this was interesting, it is tidally locked to its host star. This means it rotates at the same rate as it orbits its star, keeping its 2,500-mile melted eye fixed on the cosmic fire. So that's different from Earth.
So
it always has a dark side. The dark side's always on the same side.
But they rotate in the same way somehow.
Yeah.
Its star that serves as its sun, basically, right? I guess.
Right. And that's why it has that eyeball-looking iris that they're calling a melted eye.
Mm-hmm.
Bound on a close orbit with its star, 1 year for the planet is just under 25 Earth days.
I have determined that an exoplanet just means a planet outside the solar system.
Oh.
So that's the outside.
That's most planets.
But just, so anything outside of...
Okay. Well, that's easy to understand.
Any planet outside of, I guess, at one point in time, Pluto, but no longer. Sorry, Pluto.
I haven't given up on Pluto.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit calling this by the name they're using. I'm going to call it the eyeball.
Okay.
If the eyeball star were a main sequence star like the sun, an orbit of this distance would boil its oceans and make it completely uninhabitable. But because it is a cooler red dwarf, this short distance places the planet right in the middle of the Goldilocks zone. the perfect distance from its star for liquid water to exist on the planet. Goldilocks was not too hot, not too cold.
Just right.
To study the exoplanet, the researchers used the James Webb Telescope near-infrared imager and slitless spectrograph, which enables the telescope to assess the planet's contents as light from its star passes through the planet's hypothetical atmosphere. I like that, hypothetical atmosphere, to reach Earth. By looking at the wavelengths of light absorbed, the astronomers spotted signs of nitrogen, a key ingredient in Earth's atmosphere. Separate calculations also revealed that the planet isn't dense enough to be made of rock. Well, that could be a problem. These results seem to rule out a rocky or a mini Neptune world in favor of one encased in an icy sea. I want to move there. How about you?
I'm going to pass. You know what?
Well, it does say
You know
this.
what I'm going to look for? Just a clear place out in the woods somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
Before I decide to go
On Earth.
50 light years away.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of places on Earth, even some that are quite undesirable to live in. So let's say, would I live in the Arctic Circle over a planet that's 50 light years away that
Looks like an eyeball.
looks like an eyeball? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. Will I live on the 40th floor in the densest populated city in the world over that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of places I'd go to before.
Shack in the woods. I mean, just, you name it, right?
Yeah. Well, they're just obsessed with detecting an Earth-like atmosphere. Now,
And it seems like, the key is, because I think it was like this for a long time on Mars as well, right? Just finding water seems to be the key. And I know that water's important, right? I mean,
Right.
A source of water.
and they say
But is
they find evidence that water used to be on Mars,
right.
but no longer.
And so, I mean, what about like the atmosphere? I guess there's just a realization that you're not going to be able to show up and breathe anywhere else. And so you're going to have a source
Well,
of...
they talked about nitrogen. Here's what fascinates me. We can see planets now that are 50 light years away and see them well enough to determine whether there's water there, analyze the atmosphere, analyze the substantiability, is that a word, of the planet, whether it's made of gas or rock or whatever.
Yeah.
And we still haven't found any extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
And have you heard of the Fermi paradox? It's named after a astrophysicist named Fermi.
No.
Fermi paradox says, given the theory of evolution and the idea that life evolved quite by accident on Earth, and given the vastness of the universe, the billions of planets, the millions of galaxies, there should be a lot of life on other planets. Yet there isn't. Now, for me, that can only be God. I mean, if this world were formed by accident, it would be a long shot, but there are so many possible planets for this to form on, it would have happened somewhere else. Yep. And we've been looking so hard and for so long and so far out, we would have found something by now. Even if it was like microscopic, we would have found something, but we haven't.
Right.
And this is a paradox in science. But for me, it's pretty easy. We're the center of the universe. We were the plan. We're God's creation. And some guy asked me one time, he said, what would you think if they found life on other planets? And I said, I think it would destroy my faith, because I believe that the gospel is the key to the whole thing. It's the meaning of the universe. But it says that Christ came to this planet and died one time for all humankind.
Right.
And then I find out there are other races living on other planets. Did Christ go to each one of those planets? Are those people perfect?
Right.
Are they not saved? This may be our call.
Do you hear that?
Sounds like it's the end of my segment.
I think it is.
What if it's the pizza guy? or something?
Hello, Jason.
Hello, Brother Layton.
All right, you are on the air.
Yeah, we need to tell him that.
You're the you're the seventh caller.
I'm glad I didn't say anything inappropriate.
If you've got the
like you usually do.
If you've got the phrase that pays, you can win our jackpot today.
Yeah, we didn't do our radio voices.
All right. Under a waxing gibbons. Does that sound? Is that the phrase that pays? Under a waxing gibbons.
Our jackpot is you get to talk with us for a segment. So how are things down at the beach?
I'm so excited. Well, gentlemen, it has been a wonderful week. We had a little rain today, which forced me to take a couple-hour nap. But, other than that, it's been a good week.
I'm feeling so sorry for you right now.
Yeah, I'm sitting here on the front porch, overlooking the ocean and the moon reflecting off of it. It's quite peaceful because I'm out of the house for a few minutes. But it's beautiful. No shark attack.
All right.
There.
Everybody's got all their limbs still. That's great to hear.
We still have all our limbs. No one has lost anything that I know of yet. But what a week to be on vacation, though. I'm a little bit, I'm not terribly sad, but I am a little sad that I'm not there tonight to discuss everything that's been going on.
Oh, yeah.
It has been a busy week. Oh, no.
Bye.
No.
Well, that was rude. I've never been hung up on before.
I guess he just had that one thing to say. Let's try that again.
He's mad that we didn't include him.
Hello, brother.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, we thought you hung up on us.
Is this the listeners? Are you back? I think my phone may have hung up on you. I'm not convinced if it was me or the signal down here.
Gotcha.
I started talking about the interesting things that happened this week, and I lost phone signal. So you can imagine how intimidating that must feel.
I don't. What are you talking? Interesting things that happened. What?
Well, I flipped on the TV tonight, and our former president is wearing something on his ear. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's got quite a bandage on that thing.
Yeah.
That is a serious bandage.
Yeah. Wonder if they'll start selling those. People start walking around with their ear bandages.
What if it was the MAGA hat?
Trump 24 bandage?
With the little bandage that just flips down like an earpiece on the side.
Yeah, you just flip it over.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man, it's also almost like the hat with the fake hair underneath it when you put it on. Instead, it's got the ear badge. So what year, y'all will remember this better than me because I was young, but what year was the attempt on Reagan's life? Was that 81 or 82?
83. I was a junior in high school.
First term is all I could remember.
Yeah, I was a junior in high school.
And he almost died.
Yep.
It came out later how serious that attempt was.
Right.
Yeah. So since then, is this the first assassination attempt we've had on a sitting or former president?
On a president, yeah. There have been a couple of Congress people that have been shot.
Yeah.
Right. There was that softball practice, right?
Scalise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabby Giffords.
And then, I was going to say Gifford. That's right. And then, if you can remember the very famous shoe dodging incident with George W. Bush, when the angry guy threw shoes at him.
Bush had a perfect duck. I mean, that shoe was headed right for him. Everybody's talking about Trump's move. How about that move from George Bush?
Well, and the people in the crowd let the guy get off two shoes, which I thought was kind of chaotic. Not one, but two.
I'm not sure everybody in the crowd liked George Bush. They may have let that go. True. They may have looked the other way for a few seconds.
I am really shocked, though, that there was an active attempt on Trump's life. I know the rhetoric has been really talked up, but I really was as the news filtered down here, I don't even remember where we were. We may have been out to eat, and somebody said, they just tried to kill Trump. And we were like, yeah, whatever. And then, everybody's phone starts buzzing with news feeds, and it's one of those kind of weird things that you just don't expect to happen.
I don't understand how the guy got in position.
Yeah, I think that, there were more reports coming out today, and it seems like there was a pretty significant failure, maybe on the part of the Secret Service.
Yeah,
and
I heard
maybe others, but and of course that's not talking about anybody in the Secret Service individually. It just seems like,
no,
because I mean,
just a breakdown, a total breakdown.
just to watch those Secret Service folks up on that stage is just, to me, I mean, it's they're willing to sacrifice their lives. I mean, that's the
Right.
job that they have, and it's like you got to have so much respect for those people. And one of the stories that I'm sure that you guys heard that really impacted me was, somewhere along the way, of course, there was just talk about this around the clock, but I heard somebody say that, they were, of course they sort of enveloped him, right? When, as soon as they could get to him. And they said that part of that is that once they all get in that, SUV or whatever and take off, that part of what was going on there as well is they try to cover him so that when they jump in the car, if they find blood on themselves, they know that maybe he's shot in another area other than what's obvious. And so part of what's going on there as well is they're trying to
spot other
injuries, and so that if something's life threatening, they know about it as quickly as possible.
I think it's an example of humans are really bad at repetitive behavior. We get bored, mundane things, and setting up a site for a political campaign event is done over and over and over again to the point of monotony. And I think this was a case where they let some things go because they were like, we're in, Butler, Pennsylvania. What's going to happen here?
Right. What can happen?
This is a friendly crowd. It's not like at the Republican National Convention with protesters, no protesters around. There was a water tower. There was the roof the shooter was on, probably other structures that should have been covered that weren't. I hear all the conspiracy theories, but I think it's the Occam's razor thing, where the simplest explanation is they got lazy. Right. And that's what human beings do.
And what seems to be coming out now is that that there were warnings, right? Maybe as much as 10 minutes
now
ahead.
That is puzzling.
And, but still getting the message to the right people to make the right command.
Right.
And how many boy crying wolf things do they get during these things? Oh, that person looks suspicious too.
Yeah,
so.
I think
I've heard it a million times.
I think the real interesting thing, to that degree is, I don't know that every time somebody tries to do something like this, it makes the news. Right. So let's say that
true.
That this thing was thwarted, that they didn't have to shoot the guy. And so, they caught him on the way up the side of the building. Would that have been on Fox News that night? I don't know that. I don't know that arrest necessarily would have been. So I do wonder.
Attempts were made on Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And I think Sotomayor, maybe. And some others that we did hear about.
But I wonder if they
arrested somebody outside of the national convention yesterday that was carrying a firearm, and it made news. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know this. I don't know that for copycat purposes, if they thwart something, do they necessarily publicize?
Oh, you're saying they might, for purposes of defense, keep it quiet,
right?
Huh.
Now, I don't know anything about the head of the Secret Service, but after the comments she made I guess it was yesterday, when she came out and was talking about how they didn't want somebody on that roof because it was an angled roof. Yeah. And then in the image behind Trump, the counter sniper team was set up on an angled roof. So I don't know how she keeps her job through this. And I know nothing about her or her political allegiances. There were two things that stood out that were humorous to me, which it's hard to find humor in these things. But the fact that once he stood up and pumped his fist, he was like, all right, I got to get my shoes. And that really made me get tickled. So number one, does he take them off when he's speaking, or did they get knocked off?
Right. Did he get knocked out of his shoes or whatever right on the way down?
Yeah.
Number two,
And then
it must be a good pair of shoes. I mean,
Yeah,
listen,
the one-
I'm all about a pair of shoes that I will wear till, there's nothing left. I've got them on right
but
now.
not when bullets are flying.
But I mean, but if I'm okay and they're off, I might ask somebody to grab my, my Sperry's as they rush me off to the SUV.
Yeah, that part made me that was humorous to me. And then did y'all see the guy in the crowd? If you're looking at the podium, he was just off of Trump's left or right shoulder. It would have been to Trump's left, but his right side. He never moves throughout the entire thing. Like he sits there perfectly still and never moves until Trump stands up and throws a fist, and then he gets up and cheers. Like there's chaos going on everywhere, and he's sitting perfectly
a
still.
little slow on the uptake, maybe. I don't know.
It was the most absurd thing I've seen. It was just crazy.
Watching the crowd, we've all seen the video hundreds of times. Watching the crowd is interesting. There's one lady that you don't see, but you hear several minutes in, like after the shots are fired and they're pulling him off stage, and then all of a sudden this woman lets out a blood-curdling cry that's a little too late for it to be appropriate. And I told Julie, I said, I want to see that woman. I want to know who's capable of that kind of.
Well, and then there's the lady with a white phone right behind the podium that's just recording the whole time.
Her. Yeah, a lot of people are. That poor woman. A lot of people think she was in on it. That I've heard a lot.
No,
of
she's
stuff
doing
about
a lot
that.
of recording.
She seemed awfully calm. My observation, if we're trying to find the humor in this, is somebody has got to sit down with Trump and work on his fist pump, because he holds it. He holds that palm straight out, and that just is not a power look to me. Let's get that thing.
It's not a good
sideways.
look.
Yeah. Turn the wrist. It's more comfortable this way. Also,
and if you're going to deliver a punch to somebody, it's not palm out, right? I mean,
right. Yeah. Get that, tuck the palm in.
So if the picture is we're here to continue to fight,
your thumb should be facing you.
Yeah.
And you should do kind of like a hammer move.
Although I must say, the man is something.
Man.
To stand back up after somebody.
Unbelievable.
Somebody can't, and really, truly, this whole about, turning the head and the slides and the things that he doesn't normally do are pretty amazing. But just the fact that he, a slight turn of his head probably saved his life.
Oh, it did. No question.
Getting hit in the tip of your ear by something moving by you that quickly and being able to get up the next day and talk about it is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's just a stroke of luck, really.
It says something about him, and we've had plenty of podcast discussions about some of the things about him that we don't necessarily admire. But to be shot and all right, so the wound maybe not terribly serious, but really close
merely
to
a flesh wound.
really close to fatal. To have the wherewithal to basically think, I need to show this crowd power
immediately
right now before they rush me off to this car. And then there was discussion, and I think he's
bossing the Secret Service around,
because I think he said, I wanted to say a couple of other things, but they wouldn't. The Secret Service wouldn't hear of it. I mean, the dude wanted to go back to the podium.
He wanted to do a Teddy Roosevelt.
And he wanted to basically just say, "You can't stop me."
Yeah, and everybody in that moment felt like they couldn't stop him.
Right.
And let's hope no one tries to stop him again, because I'm afraid this is just gonna just increase the hate for this man across the country too.
Well, it's
I don't
inspired.
know.
It's woken a lot of people up. It's made people. It's gained him a lot of favor as well.
Yeah. I think the question is right. So everybody's saying the right things right now, right? Not
Yeah.
to say that
Not
I
everybody.
not that I question
No,
motives.
I've been flipping through the other news agencies. There's
Yeah.
some other stuff starting to
Okay,
pop up.
right. But so how long will we've got to tone down the rhetoric, and maybe to your point, it hasn't lasted this long, but just the general, because that was the wave, the immediate wave was, and came from both Trump and Biden, was we need to tone down the rhetoric. Now, I'm not sure that necessarily either one of them know what that means.
We'll
No.
see. Trump is saying some things, throwing out some hints that Thursday night his speech is going to be a unifying speech. And I really hope we see a different man. He has seemed different in what we've seen of him in the Republican National Convention so far.
You would think this has to be humbling for him. At least put things into perspective for him.
You would hope. Yeah.
Now,
I
on
want
the
to see
opposite
that.
end, yeah.
I want to see that. And I also want to see Americans. I mean, yes, the presidential election is high stakes. It's very important, but it's not the end of the world if your guy doesn't get the election, if he doesn't win the election. We've got to quit acting like the president is everything.
Right. Even though we've heard an awful lot about that, if Trump wins this election, it'll be the end of democracy as we know it. And it's like,
we've got to dial that back.
We do realize he's had a 4-year run already, right? And democracy didn't die. And even if you want to talk about January 6th, okay, that was an incident, and democracy did not die in that moment. I mean, so, whatever, it's like just the overstatement of right, the world will crumble. I think that
there's a lot of hyperbole out there.
Absolutely.
Or hyperbole for those of you from Rio Linda.
Right.
And for Christians, I think this is always the reminder that what we really want is to have the opportunity to live a quiet and peaceful life, right?
Right. 1 Timothy 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I do want to go on the opposite side of the spectrum to another conspiracy theory that they have done everything they can to ask Biden to step aside since the debate. And Biden has just consistently said, no way, I'm in this for the long run. Did y'all see the news today about him? Had to cancel a speaking engagement, I think, in Virginia.
It's got COVID, right?
Because he has COVID.
I hadn't heard that.
I think they've probably sprayed him down with COVID. He won't step down, so his own people have squirted him down with COVID.
Hasn't he already had COVID this year?
I think this is 20. I think they gave him. I think they gave him 20 or 21 this time. He doesn't even have 19.
He's kind of like
he is COVID.
He is like the mayor in the Jim Carrey version of the Grinch that's had his tonsils out twice. That's kind of what Biden is like. He's going to do everything to the extreme.
What a reference.
He doesn't have COVID once. No, he has had COVID now twice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, guys, man, I'm so good to talk to you fellas. When I saw a missed call, my heart dropped a little bit, and I was like, oh, I missed my chance. And then I texted Tim, and I didn't hear back. And then I was like, well, I'm being impatient, but I'm going to call. So
you did the right thing.
We're glad that you did, and we're glad that you also knew the phrase that pays and was able to enjoy this segment with us.
We'll be sending you your T-shirt and couch mix once those things are finished in production.
Well, and I cannot wait to listen. This will give me another podcast. I think my family's probably a little tired of the previous podcast that we've done because I think I listened to 3 or 4 of them again on the way down here. So this will give us a new one.
Yeah, you got some fresh
honestly,
material.
Most everybody went to sleep. Most everybody goes to sleep. So it was just me being narcissistic and enjoying listening to myself talk. So,
right.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
Well, if anybody's awake in the car other than Jason when you're listening to this, hello, Pullums.
And be
guys,
safe.
I hope y'all have a good evening. I will. And if there are any shark attacks, I'll call back in.
Absolutely.
All right, do it.
And make sure and take pictures.
All right.
Oh, I will, for sure. All right, y'all have a good night.
All right, man.
Take
We'll
care.
see you.
Hey,
All right,
listen,
see ya.
since we
Bye.
got into the Trump stuff a little sooner than I thought,
Yeah.
I have a quote here that, that's him hanging up. I have a quote here I wanted to share. I was going to save it for later, but
Okay, go ahead.
we probably won't return to the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
This is a statement that I found very interesting. Of course, there's no end to the statements that have been made, but this was made by Sam Harris. Now, Sam Harris is an atheist. He's probably the most prominent atheist alive right now. He was one of, they called the four horsemen of the atheist world, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and I forget the fourth guy. But he was one of them. Oh, I named three, didn't I? So anyway, he's very well known. And he said that even, and this wasn't too long ago, even if they found dead corpses in Hunter Biden's basement, he would vote for Joe Biden. That's how much he hated Trump. Mm-hmm. And he said a lot of other crazy stuff too. He said he compared Trump to an asteroid hurling toward the Earth. And he called him an existential threat, which is a phrase used of Trump by others.
Right.
But here's what he said after the shooting. I just wanted to share this with you. It's a little long, but I think the whole thing is worth reading. Had the shooter succeeded, whatever you think about Trump and the risks he poses to our democracy, that outcome would have been catastrophic. Nothing good would have come from a successful act of political violence, which is a very long, callous way of saying that I'm very happy the shooter missed. Obviously, one person did die, a man protecting his family. That's absolutely tragic. I believe two people are in critical condition. So the whole thing is awful. But for anybody out there who imagines it would have been better, all things considered, if Trump had been killed, again, even from a completely callous point of view that cares nothing for the man or family or his friends or anyone else, if you're just hoping for a certain political outcome, I think you're completely delusional. If you think blowing his head off on television would have resulted in something good in America, our entire society quite literally dodged a bullet along with the man himself. Okay, there's more. Which, as everyone has observed and everyone must concede, the fact that he was almost entirely unharmed and with a difference of an inch would have been certainly killed, that part was astounding. But also his behavior in the immediate aftermath and the resulting photos and video, although the photos have been most impactful. You just have to join the chorus of amazement, especially given his persona and his political needs, his upraised fist, his attitude. The man had the presence of mind to stage manage his own near assassination perfectly. And I don't mean to make a cynical point here. That was genuinely impressive. Anyway, I don't know how any Democrat successful runs against that imagery. So I've shared with you some of his previous comments about Trump. He's one that has changed his mind, at least about the outcome of the election, and sounds like personally toward Trump.
Yeah. It is very interesting when you look at the polls, right? Because, we had talked some about this. I know we were on a group text together, and, once we knew he was okay, one of the things we agreed to right away was he just won the election.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I think that we're correct in that.
Surely our memory isn't that short that in 4 months people will have forgotten this.
Right. But even some of the most recent polls, and I know that the polls are as skewed as the people who, produce them. But I was reading something today that I think was doing a combination of a number of polls. And it was like the numbers haven't moved that much. Now I think it goes back to some of now this was more around popular vote, right? And
Not looking at the electoral college so much.
I think we know that that Trump being ahead in the popular vote means that he could have a significant win in the electoral vote, I believe.
Yeah.
I think that points to that,
Because
right?
Republicans rarely win a popular vote.
A popular vote, right? And so the fact that he's a couple of points ahead, I think in general in the popular vote means that there's a significant lead there. The dude that wears like the khaki pants on the NBC networks, you know the guy I'm talking about? He's
crazy.
basically the replacement of Tim Russert, who, had the whiteboard and everything.
Yeah.
And he passed away. And so I think he's
He
the
always
guy.
has khaki pants, white shirt with sleeves rolled up, and a
Exactly.
kind of a polo tie, some kind.
And so he's the guy who deals with the numbers and goes through all the different, iterations. And, he was showing that right now, if you look at, you don't deal with what they would consider at the moment to be swing states, that Trump almost begins with 270. And so, that's how many you need to win. And so then when you start talking about swing states, which, to think that Biden would necessarily clean sweep the swing states is very far-fetched, right? Even if they've split them half and half, it could be a resounding victory for Trump. He could be well above 300. And so really, and some of that, just the map as I remember it, did some things that were already different than the last election. I think basically gave like Georgia back to Trump. Didn't even consider it really to be a swing state. The swing states were more Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, maybe not even Ohio. Maybe it was just Michigan. Nevada.
Yeah.
This weird place in Kansas where there's like an electoral vote sitting out there by itself in a cornfield or something. But I think they do by districts or something really different there, rather than the winner of the state gets all of them, that kind of thing. But anyhow, it was where was I going with that? It didn't seem to move the needle that much. I think one of the conversations that we've had about the election already is, I think for most people in this country, it's not necessarily about who the person is in the suit, right? It's more about like what the basic ideas of the party they represent are. And, we've said that about Trump before, right? Is that there's a lot of things about him that we don't necessarily admire. But some of the principles are more closely aligned with us than what the other party stands for. Yeah. And I think that maybe what the polls don't account for necessarily,
the polls changed after the debate, don't you think?
I think they did.
Maybe
but
they changed all that they're going to change.
Maybe
like everybody who had an open mind made up their mind to leave the Biden camp after the debate.
The weird thing about these elections is there's this sliver in the middle, apparently, of just like wishy-washy folks, right? That, because it's, now, I guess, to some degree, you want people who think about who they're going to vote for before they vote for it. So maybe it's not fair to call them wishy-washy. I don't know. But it's like they decide every election, so you got, 40% or so of the country on each side, exactly where they're going to vote. If you put, a Labradoodle in, as the nominee, that you're going to vote for him. Right. And so, and then that little sliver in the middle. Now, I do think what might be interesting is there's that. Now, everybody who gets polled, that answers the phone and agrees to take the poll, they're recorded. But part of this may be who's motivated to go to the polls, right? So if you're like, I would vote for Biden, but
if they called my house and I happen to pick up the phone,
if I happen to pick up the phone,
yes or no.
But this time, I think I'm just going to sit it out.
Yeah.
And do a lot of people do that? And does that have an impact on the overall results?
Because he has health problems that keep him from being able to do the job.
Right.
And people may not want to say that out loud, but they may stay home. And maybe the easier thing for them to do. I hope it is, because, I don't mean to be cruel or callous toward him, but he has no business being in that office in the state he's in. And I hate it for him that he's in that state.
Right.
But it doesn't change the fact that he can't do the job anymore.
Yeah. And because maybe he lives 4 more years, but,
he needs to do that enjoying his retirement.
Right. And people have finally, prior to the debate, they were, it was like, this is all just a production of the, of our opponents or whatever to make out that he's having a cognitive decline. But, just, it was so obvious. And
he's been out trying to prove them wrong. And every time he does, it just makes it worse.
And cognitive decline doesn't reverse itself.
No.
And it doesn't stop.
Mm-mm.
It only goes in one direction. It continues on. And so,
unless you're Robert F. Kennedy, who had a worm in his brain.
There you go.
His cleared up.
We don't think that this is worm related.
Or Fetterman, he had the stroke and he recovered a lot from that.
Yeah.
Well, what you got there?
All right, this is a quick one, and I think maybe we need a little change of pace. Anyway, let's do a Yay Sports. Hey, just by the way, in a redirect on the thing about the James Webb telescope, the fact that a telescope can see 50 light years away,
this is incredible,
phenomenal. Right. So I popped a Goog on, and so if people don't know what Pop a Goog is, that means I Googled. That's we got that from Patrick Birch. So how far away in miles is 50 light years? 2.939 times 10 to the 14th miles. So I think
why did they give it to us with an exponent? Is that what that's called?
I think it's because the number's so big they had to give it to us in scientific notation.
I wanted to hear like quadrillion or something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's 2,939, and then I believe that would be 11 more zeros behind it. And so that's how far in miles.
We're never going to get there.
Right.
We had to find a wormhole or something.
That's right.
It's just
a little portal to get there.
We're not going to get there. It's not going to happen.
Yep. So, okay, on to Yay Sports. So the SEC Media Days certainly have been overshadowed by the Republican National Convention this week and everything that's been going on. But they are in Dallas, and one of the main reasons that the SEC's in Dallas is because they're welcoming in Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. So this is the official entrance that's been talked about for a couple of years. And so they're now in the SEC and will start playing this coming year with the football season. So,
which is very soon, like 40-something days.
That's right. Absolutely. So the title of this article that I'm pulling from off of AL.com is Oklahoma Star applauds SEC's horns down decision, cause Big 12 restrictions soft. And so if you don't know about the horns down, right? So, obviously Texas, their hand signal or whatever to the world is hook 'em horns, right. And, with the horns up. So, in what was somewhat of a controversial decision, and I think a lot of the controversy was Texas got to basically run the Big 12 because they were the big cat in town. I mean, there's a lot of money at the University of Texas. They're an enormous school. They're a prestigious school, and they were, they were the big dog in the Big 12. There was a rule passed that if their opponents did the horns down, which was basically, a mockery of the hook 'em horns, that they would be penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct. And that's not necessarily me like running up to you as a Texas player and putting it in your face, or, an act of
It's a
taunting or whatever.
Big 12 rule.
It was a Big 12 rule. And so
if they were playing an SEC team, it wouldn't apply.
Maybe, but a lot of times it might have to do with, do they bring the Big 12 officials with them? There's always that question of, I don't know.
That's wild. I've never heard of this.
That's a decent question or whatever. But the Big 12 rule was, you drop the horns, you're going to get a 15-yard penalty. So let's say I scored against Texas and I do the horns down, the flag's coming out. And so, they're like, for one thing, it's like, well, that makes Texas look like a bunch of big babies, right?
Right. And why do they get
right? And why do they get this treatment, right? So if I do, if I thumb my nose at the other team and I'm on Texas, do I get 15 yards for that, or whatever, some act of mockery toward them might be. So there was a question of what was going to happen in the SEC in relation to this, and so the Big 12 treated any instance of horns down as taunting, and it resulted in a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty if done in a game. On Tuesday, the SEC coordinator of officials, John McDade, announced the conference has a different take. We're going to evaluate it in context, McDade told the SEC network. Is it taunting an opponent? Is it making a travesty of the game? A travesty of the game is something that offends us, right? Kick it out of the football stadium, go put it in a shopping mall or out in a parking lot somewhere. Well, does it offend someone? Then it's probably making a travesty of the game. So
kick it out of the.
I don't know
what?
Exactly. I think what he meant was take what they're doing on the football field and put it in the parking lot at Walmart.
How would it go over in the real world?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So are they doing something that's offensive enough that it would be a spectacle in the Walmart parking lot?
Yeah.
If they are, then it's probably taunting or making a travesty of the game. We'll flag that. If it's I intercepted a pass and ran it back for a touchdown, and I'm just putting the horns down as I run back to the sidelines or whatever, we're not throwing a flag over that. And so basically this article was someone from Oklahoma, who's, of course, a big rival of Texas, and the other team coming to the SEC, and he's quite excited about it. He said Billy Bowman, so he was from Oklahoma, and he was at SEC Media Days representing them, the first from OU to come to the media room, and he came with some heat, talking horns down. If you let a hand signal affect you and affect the game, maybe you shouldn't be there. If it can't be a part of the game, that's pretty soft. So I think he's quite excited.
I agree with him.
I think he's quite excited, and I think this is probably, just, sort of a signal to Texas. Welcome to the SEC. You're one of a number of big dogs.
Right.
But
careful what you wish for.
But you're not running the show here anymore.
Yeah. Wow. So, I had no idea. I guarantee you're going to see some horns down this year.
Oh yeah, an awful lot, and
especially when they play Oklahoma, if they play
right.
Oklahoma.
And certainly in the stands, there's a lot of that. Now, Alabama played Texas the last couple of years, right? And Texas won. Remember, we were over at the Herrera's.
Yes.
And that game was on early in the year, and Texas took it to Alabama, pretty well, and then went on and played in the college football playoff. And so I do remember when Alabama won at Texas. It was a very close game. I think it came down to maybe like a kick right at the end. And as they were running across the field, some of the Alabama players were doing the horns down. Well, I think on a couple of fronts, Saban didn't want them doing that. On another front, Steve Sarkisian, who was a Saban assistant before he went to Texas, is a friend. And, he's basically, I remember him yelling at his players that he saw doing that. We're not doing that, which I think's fine. But once again, a penalty. Well,
come on.
In context, so like I said, if I run up to you and I'm holding it up in your face or whatever,
that's different.
That's different than if I'm just doing it because you know, it's
just don't make,
it's a
in their
celebration,
words,
right?
a travesty
A
of
travesty of the game.
Travesty of the game.
Ask yourself what this would look like in the Walmart parking lot.
Right. And that'll answer your question.
Yep. So that's it.
Well, let's take a little break. We'll be back with our passage. Thanks for sticking with us. We're ready for the portion of this podcast where we get serious. We talk about serious things, and Tim's got our passage for this week.
All right, here's our passage from this week, and it comes from John F. Kennedy. You don't have to think too hard to think why we might have picked this one this week. There, with the assassination attempt, brings back to mind, other attempts. We talked about it in the first portion of this podcast. And so the quote from John F. Kennedy says, "The stories of past courage, they can teach, they can offer hope, they can provide inspiration, but they cannot supply courage itself. For this, each man must look into his own soul." And of course, this comes from JFK. He was the 35th president. He was president in the early 60s, from 61 to 63. And so he was president during the, one of the times that we'd consider the height of the Cold War. He dealt with the Cuban Missile Crisis. He also encouraged us to forge ahead in the space race. And then he was assassinated during his first term in office, his only term in office, in 1963 in Dallas by Lee Harvey Oswald. And so this one sort of stood out as we talked about courage, and there were an awful lot of things that we saw in the past week that make us think about courage.
Yeah.
And be it, we've talked about the Secret Service agents, whether it be the man behind that event that lost his life, in the course of that. So his name was Corey Comparator or something like that.
Yeah.
50-year-old man who was a former volunteer department fire chief. And he basically died shielding his family.
Wow. Yeah.
And
it's a real hero.
Yeah. And so just as I've been thinking about this since we selected this quote, and thinking about events like this, courage is a really interesting virtue. It's an interesting topic to talk about, because have you ever really considered, like, if you were caught in like a life or death situation like this, how would you react? And I think all of us, have in mind so what if it involved your family? How would you react? Courage comes in a lot of different forms, and that's the extreme form of courage, right? Courage comes in everyday forms. Like, do you talk to a friend about, a difficult topic you need to talk to them about or something? Yeah. It comes
Sometimes it takes more courage when you have more time to think about it.
Yeah. But when I see events like this, and like the man who lost his life, I think you have to be made of some stuff that's instinctive, right? That's not, I have time to think about what should I do? Let me make a decision. Now I'll do it. This is who I am.
People have been puzzled by the audience and how so many of them just sat in their seats or looked frozen. But I think that's the typical response, is when things start going on and you don't know what's happening, you freeze up. I mean, it's definitely I started to call it a defense mechanism. It's not a defense mechanism. It's just a human reaction to danger.
Right.
Is you just freeze up. You don't know what to do. And we even saw some of the Secret Service acting like that a little, just. And then there were these men like the Corey who passed away and Trump who seemed to know exactly what to do.
Right.
In that situation, and many of the Secret Service agents as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the question for us to consider is, where does that come from? And is it just something that's within us?
Mm-hmm.
Or how do we develop what we're talking about there to have real courage?
Yeah. Yeah. And you didn't say much about the talk about history, which is probably appropriate because he's downplaying. He's not saying history is unimportant. History has a value academically. It can give you hope and inspiration. It can teach you. We say those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. But it only goes so far. It's
Right.
not going to develop character.
And we're talking about history here, right? It's only a few days old.
We're in the middle of it, yeah.
Right? But, this situation, what this man did with his family, the man who lost his life, we look at that and we think, that's who I'd want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd want to be the person who's protecting my wife and my son. And, so I was reading an article just a few minutes ago where President Trump had called the widow of this man, and basically said, I'll be checking on you, a number of times in the days to come, and I think she expressed appreciation, and she said, he died a hero, and she talked about God's welcome for him, but when I was reading that article, she said, his last words were "get down." So through his words, through his actions, I mean, he was heroic.
Yeah, it reminds you a little bit about, was it Flight 93 during 9/11?
Yeah.
Where there was some passengers that said, this plane's not going into a building.
And what was it they said? They were
Let's go, let's roll.
Right. And,
Something like that.
And they basically charged, and they knew they were sacrificing their lives, but they knew what was about to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And so they saved many lives as they sacrificed their own. It's like there's some secret sauce in there. And I think we need to,
Is it
we need
just
to dig
wired in,
Right.
or have these people looked into their soul, and what does that mean?
Right.
Because we want to be like that.
That's right.
So,
and so there's a number of things that Scripture tell us about this.
mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that, everyone that basically acts in this way, is a result of what Scripture tells us, but we know Scripture's true. And so if we're asking ourselves, how do we build some of this into ourselves? Deuteronomy 31:6 tells us to be strong and courageous. And it says, the Lord your God goes with you.
Mm.
There's a component to this. And I was looking up several other scriptures, Psalm 56:3-4, right, is a great passage. When I'm afraid, I will put my trust in you. The courage is the ability to face your fear. It's not
right, not the
courage is not
absence
an
of fear.
absence of fear. I can control the fear and overcome it.
And it's a choice. Then going back to the first passage you used in Deuteronomy, he gives a command to be strong and courageous, which means we have a choice. He wouldn't
Right.
command it if it wasn't a choice that all of us have.
And both of those verses say, one of them says, the Lord your God goes with you. And the other one says, I will put my trust in you. And so certainly the way that a Christian looks to develop courage is that realization that God is on your side and more importantly, you are on God's side, and that helps to breed courage, right? And so
Right.
is that necessarily the courage that, throws me into an event like this? Well, I think in some way it breeds a mindset that says, you know, I won't fear what man can do to me, because I know if I'm doing, that I can live my life in a certain way. I can't.
The Lord is my helper.
Exactly.
I will not fear what man will do to me. That ties into the quote, because where is God? We depend on him, and then he is with me. So that's the key to courage. I got to find him. Where is he? I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. I preached on it last Sunday about the components of a human being. It's body, soul, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't break all those down for this, but the spirit is the part of man that engages God. That's where we encounter God. We don't encounter him out in outer space. We often talk about him as if he's up in the air somewhere,
Right.
sitting on a cloud. But God says, where, I will dwell in you. I will abide with you. I will be in you, and you will be in me. Christ in you, the hope of glory, Colossians 1:27. There are a lot of passages that say God is within, and it's not in our bloodstream or in our organs. He is in our spirit, that part of us, which is within. And that's what I'd like to think JFK meant when he said, for courage, you've got to look into your own soul. You've got to look into your own soul and find God there. He didn't finish it that way. You got to find God there. Now,
maybe he didn't have the full, complete thought. And I think, maybe there is the people who just, they have a different level of will within themselves, where they're willing to do heroic things, and maybe all of that is not necessarily based in God, but for a Christian,
but they're still reaching down to that spiritual part of themselves.
They are. That's right.
For it, and that's
right.
I believe that's beyond psychology, beyond thought, beyond logic. That's deeper. That's another level. I think the soul is, if we distinguish soul from spirit, I think the soul is where the emotions, the thoughts, the volition is. And then deeper than that's that spiritual part of man.
Right.
And he uses the term soul, but he means if you use technical language, he means the spirit where we encounter God.
And I guess this is where I'd like your thoughts on. So one of the other passages that I wrote down was Romans 8:26. It says the Spirit helps us in our weakness. Mm-hmm. That's a different spirit, right? That's the Spirit
Holy
of God.
Spirit, yeah.
And so, is there not some relationship here? And we don't have to talk tonight about how this happens, right? Because we don't know, but how the Spirit of God interacts with the spirit of man. But there is, it has to happen where's it strengthening us?
Yeah.
It feels to me like it's strengthening us in our spirit, that spirit of God and the spirit of man have some interaction.
Well, I think
there.
a passage closer to what you're talking about is Ephesians 3:16, where Paul prays that the Spirit would strengthen his readers in the inner man.
Mm-hmm.
And Romans 8:26 is good. It tells us that the indwelling Spirit knows your needs. That's the part where, like, he reads you, he knows your needs, he knows you better than you know yourself, and he intercedes for you with the Father with groanings too deep for words.
Right.
But that strength, I don't know how that works, but I know it works on a spiritual level.
Right.
That we don't fully understand, but that is real. And for us that struggle with fear, you prepare through prayer, through the Word of God, through meditation, by going in, not going out, by going in. Now, that being said, I think there's some people, and Trump may be one of these, that is just natural, dyed-in-the-wool, brave, courageous, fearless. I like that word better, because there are moral things that go along with brave and courageous. I think fearless is possibly what we saw the other day, which is helpful in a leader. But I don't know that I don't know that he's done a lot of time. I mean, maybe he has. I don't know that he's done a lot of introspection. I think he's probably doing more of it now.
I would think so.
But in that moment, he just is so accustomed to getting what he wants, so accustomed to power, so accustomed to the guy's lucky. I mean, he really is lucky that it didn't shock him in the moment as much as it would a normal human being to have been shot in the ear. And shock is probably a good word because he might have been in shock in a different sense. But he had his wits about him, and he's just made out of different stuff than most people. He really is.
You know, I was listening to a commentator who I don't believe in any way is in Trump's camp politically. Mm-hmm. But he was basically saying, listen, he said, and I do not mean this. It was very similar to the Sam Harris quote. But he was saying on his podcast that he said you can't buy and market what happened on that stage. He said it was basically perfection. If you were like, if this event was going to happen from a perspective of a man who's running for president, what's the perfect thing that could happen? And he said, he wasn't mortally wounded. He goes down. The Secret Service is on him. He comes up. He puts his hand up in the air and he yells to the people 3 times, fight, fight, fight. And the flags waving behind him.
This is why so many people accused it of being staged. They just couldn't believe that a man could behave that way in that situation, and that the setup would be. What did Harris say? He said, "Stage management."
Right.
He did some stage management. Listen, he said, "I'm not being cynical about it." He used that moment,
right, and this exactly
when he needed
what this
to,
other
because
man
he needs to win to lead the country.
And so, again, if you're in the conspiracy theory business, and that, I mean, here we are right on the heels of a major event with a debate where you're questioning the ability of the other candidate to lead. And so then you take this picture and you set it against those visuals that we talked about, in relation to the debate issues. It's like, well, I don't know what these guys, if I just put in a vacuum, not even thinking about what their platforms are. Right. But you see 2, starkly different pictures at that point. Right. Yeah. So pulling it back into but that courage,
that stuff. I don't know that Trump gets his courage the way JFK's recommending here.
And
not saying he doesn't, but I'm saying it's possible that some people are just made out of different stuff.
And when you said that, and when you started down that path, I started thinking about soldiers, right? Yeah. Because certainly some soldiers, I mean, they're made of the right stuff to be a soldier.
Well, and there's training also that, over time, creates muscles in them that they didn't have before. Right. The way the drill sergeants would put it is they're turning them into men. And that may be another route.
Right. And they do things that we would say are incredibly courageous. Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff pumped into their spirits about love of country and duty and honor. And so that stuff doesn't take the place of God, but it might help them get to that place as soldiers.
Right. I think that they're, and maybe if you're looking for, a study to do, look into God's word for what it says about courage. And it struck me as I, just did a very cursory view, that when you talk about not being frightened, being courageous, the Bible says a number of things about this, and they're always coupled with get close to God, right? And that's no, I mean, I'm not telling you some great
every
revelation
time
tonight.
it seems like
every time it's like, if you want courage, and if we think about that, I just think about it in terms of situations that we could relate to practically here on earth, right? That maybe don't have to do with our relationship with God. But in a lot of cases, if you have the authority of someone, it helps make something that's difficult easier, right? So if you have, so you're dealing with your brothers and sisters at home. Well, if mom and dad have told you something, then, even if the brothers and sisters don't want to hear it, it's not as hard than as if you're just trying to tell them, do this because I think it's the right thing for us to do, right? You have the authority of mom and dad. I mean, maybe that's not a great one,
but someone in the room that knows what to do,
right,
and knows what's going on, a leader. And in our case, God is that person that we're looking to.
And if we're trying to follow that, but having the endorsement or basically I've got God on my side. That was sort of the analogy that I was trying to draw there is, the fact that we have God, it's similar to on earth. If we have someone who's authorizing us to do something, they're on our side, that we're not like just out trying to do something on our own, right? In terms of, some challenge we're trying to overcome. And I'm not coming up with good examples for that to try to, enforce that thought, or reinforce that thought. But
it's someone that you can trust, and you believe he knows what's going on, and he's not leading you astray, and he's saying everything's going to be okay as long as you go my way and follow me, and you look for him. And again, I may sound like a broken record, but where do you look for him? In your spirit.
Right. And that produces, hey, what I was dealing with or what I'm trying to go do, it makes that easier to make that hard, challenging decision, something where I need to overcome fear. It allows me to make that leap and do that courageous thing.
And you may search down there and not find him. And so that's when you need to take a step back and learn how to have a relationship with God.
Yeah. And I think for us in a lot of cases, it's not throwing ourselves in front of harm. In probably in our world, in most cases, it's talking to our friends, right?
Yeah. You brought that up a while ago. Right. I think you're right. I having those hard conversations, probably
right. Just the thing
9 times out of 10, that's where you have to muster the courage. Right.
And it's so easy to just move forward with inaction, right? I mean, and just not do anything. So it's very easy to shirk back when you feel like you need to have a conversation with someone that'll be, that because you love them, because you want the best for them, because, you're concerned for their soul.
You don't want to lose their friendship.
Right. But at the same time, you're not sure how it's going to be accepted.
Yeah.
Sometimes, do we know the whole story? But it takes courage to step in there. And that's a much more practical one than these big ones.
I've got another one. Complacency is a form of fear. Not growing, not trying new things, not following. You may have a dream professionally or some other kind of dream, or maybe some spiritual goals that you've always been afraid you're not good enough, you're not sufficient enough to tackle.
Right.
I think that's a common fear that requires courage to step out of your comfort zone and do something new. No matter, there was a quote we did where it was like, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can keep growing. I forgot who said that. Jason's not here with his
With its
book of quotes to tell us, but you know, that's something that requires a great deal of courage.
Yep. All right.
Well, we probably could say more, but we are out of time. If there is such a thing as being out of time on a podcast, we're ready to go home, I think is what's going on. It's late, but we hope to have Jason back with us next week. And there's a lot going on in the news. We just scratched the surface, so I don't think we're going to run out of things to talk about. In the meantime, catch up on old episodes if you need to, and tell your friends about what's going on Passages. We're always glad to have new listeners and to hear feedback. Don't forget to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes, Apple is iTunes, Audible, Amazon, and Spotify. That's the other one. And then listen to John as he takes us out. Well, that's not him. That was funny. That's where I thought John was. Let's try this one.
Follow us on Instagram at passages_podcast. And join us next time on Passages.